So if you have a horse that is afraid of getting the saddle thrown over them and they're reactive or sitting back or pulling or whatever, the thing to do is to do it over and over and over and over and over and over again until your horse relaxes and becomes calm with it. Most people give up on the things that they're doing with their horses way too soon, way too quickly. We want to make sure that we are letting our horses get acclimated, and one of the best ways to get our horse acclimated to something new that we're teaching them is repetition, right? So taking the saddle on, putting it back on, taking the saddle on, or taking the saddle off, putting it back on. Now, with my coaching students, I teach this all the time. This is why I have students who might work with a horse doing groundwork, and maybe they get on that horse in 30 or 60 days after creating an incredible bond and connection with their horse. And there's a lot of people who would say, well, why would you put 30, 60 days into a horse before you climb on for a first ride? Well, let me tell you why. When my students get on for their first ride, not only can they mount safely, not only typically does that horse not buck, not only does that horse not rear, not only does that horse not take off, but they can move that horse's front end and pivot. They can get that horse to move the hind end. They can typically side pass that horse. They typically have good vertical flexion where that horse will soften, right? And so their horse will give to their leg, right? And they can move left and right and get some lateral motion out of that horse, because these are all things that they worked on the ground and did over and over again in order to build that horse's confidence. We call these rapid learning reps or rapid learning repetition, where there's something that we work on with a horse that most people might only do once or twice in a training session. Well, we might do it 20, 30, 40 times. Now, we're not doing it all at the same time, and there's a specific way that we do it so our horse doesn't get burnt out, but they're learning how to do that thing and get better and better at it 20, 30, maybe even 40 times in a session, where most people might just work on it once. Most trainers will saddle up a horse, do their groundwork, ride their horse, and then they unsaddle the horse when they're done. So that horse was only saddled and unsaddled once. With my students, I'm teaching you, hey, let's saddle and unsaddle that horse, 15, 20 times. And that is how the horses that my students work with excel so much quicker and faster than the average horse owner or trainer that has a horse, because we're being very intentional about giving them more exposure in a meaningful way. Short little sessions, but it's meaningful and it sticks. So saddle and unsaddle your horse over and over and over. And guess what? Over again. And you're going to find that your horse is going to become much more comfortable and confident with you putting that saddle on.